me, pal.
Never grow old, Michael.
The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Showtime.
Okay, so welcome back to Sinister Scripts Podcast, where we're diving into some of the minds behind the stories that keep our horror fans up at night. Today, we've got a fun episode planned because we are joined by two very special guests. We've got Erin and Kyle, who are the creative minds behind the outstanding horror comedy ZombieCon Volume 1. This is a indie zombie gem that I think blends convention culture, cosplay, zombie outbreak into something that I think is very fresh, chaotic, and clearly made by people who love horror, love fandom culture. So we're going to talk about the film, the origins of the film, challenges of bringing that story to life, some of the writing process, and of course, what fans can expect next in the world from ZombieCon. So Erin, Kyle, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you.
Yay! Thank you so much for having us. Pumped to be here.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you very much.
I have a lot of friends in the horror space who have, had conversations, and they're like, do you know how long this film was like in development and in production? And I was like, no. And they were like, oh, something like 10 years. Is that what I heard? Is that correct?
Yeah, a long time. Production was a breeze in comparison to post-production. It also was a little bit odd because Kyle, both of us, but especially Kyle editing this, was teaching himself how to do everything at the level with which we wanted ZombieCon to be. And then you throw in COVID and a couple of crazy setbacks and finding the right distribution. And we ended up 9 or so years after production, finally getting the distribution we wanted and releasing it. So it took a while, but we got
but it's here. I guess the first question I kind of want to start with is kind of along those lines, and feel free either of you to answer this. And so this, like I mentioned kind of in our intro, ZombieCon really blends that convention culture, not just horror, but just Comic-Con, anime, all that different convention culture with a zombie outbreak. So what sparked that idea, and how did you kind of evolve from Paige, because I noticed you were both credited as writers on the show, or on the movie, excuse me, to translating that to the screen?
So this started after we had gotten done with like a number of web series and short films and a lot of littler projects that led us to a point where we were like not really finding a foothold in how to bring our work to people, right? Finding out years later, it probably had a lot more to do with advertising and marketing than, just not producing content. But in the hopes of trying to create something that was so big that we could get people's attention and maybe get one of those kind of Hollywood moments where, the producer flies in the background and it's like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I want to give you $100 million for your next thing.
Right.
I romanticized that version of events in my mind so many times. We decided that we wanted to do a feature film.
Okay.
We didn't really have any money to speak of. We had a Blackmagic cinema camera prior to that we had shot a lot of stuff on, like the old 4K one, little box. And so I was like, we'll do it on this, we'll do it scrappy. It'll be great in regards to like what it should be and genre specific. I have always had a love affair with like zombie movies. And in my brain, it's a zombie movie is like kind of like the first stepping stone for like an indie filmmaker to be like, if you're going to make your first movie and you get to choose the genre, it just seems synonymous with zombie movies. So I was kind of already moving in that direction. And I thought, zombies it's not high stunt related. It seemed like we could do it for the right budget. And so many other directors had done it, really great zombie movies for very minimal budgets. I was like, it seemed like a match made in heaven. And as we were visiting my brother and kind of talking through the idea of what these zombies should be and what the story should be, I was kind of looking around his house. I was probably drinking a little too much. There's like, he's a huge collector. He's got like, his entire house is a museum, right? It's filled with movie props and like there's Iron Man helmets. There's a wall full of Predator masks. Nice. That looks like an old hunting lodge if he was like hunting predators. And on one of the walls, there's a big Captain America shield. And I was like looking at that Captain America shield and kind of scoping everything else out. And I was like, the creative juices were firing. And I'm like, it would be so cool to like see a survivor of a zombie apocalypse in this environment and how they would use these tools as weapons to kind of fight off the zombies. Like I could see the Captain America shield as a great defense item in a zombie apocalypse. And, you know, he's got like all kinds of sharp swords, like Lord of the Rings swords and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's like a full setup.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, yeah, but my brother's not going to really be like, yeah, take my movie props that I've spent like all of my extra money on for the last 20 years and yeah, destroy them for your film. And we certainly didn't have the budget to like, you know, buy props like that. So I was kind of cycling through, okay, well, who else would have this kind of stuff other than like a movie prop collector? And it seemed to fall in natural. I'm like, well, I'm a cosplayer. I've got like stuff like this, but it's made out of like EVA foam and stuff. Well, that could really work as a defense item. And then one thing started to click after the next thing. And I was like, Erin, have you ever seen a movie with cosplayers like as the key focus? And she's like, no, I don't think so. And we did a little research. We're like, yeah, that's not been done before. And so then it was like, okay, so cosplayers are kind of like that's who movies are made for, like cosplayers, like, people that go to conventions and we're doing a first time zombie movie because I love zombie movies. And I think that it's like a romanticized version of a first filmmaker's film. And those two things, when they collided, it was like, you know, the big bang of, you know, the entire idea process. And it was like, okay, from that point forward, we know we're doing a zombie movie and we know it's going to be zombies versus cosplayers. And then things just started to fall into place after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's so funny because like you just said, like it's who usually the convention crew, that's who the movies are for, but putting them into like the role of the heroes and the antagonist, I thought was a brilliant choice. You know, we mentioned zombies being like the first filmmakers kind of, you know, I always think found footage, right? Because found footage is like very forgiving, cheap. You can just you forgive the shaky hand cam because you're like, oh, it's found footage. And as a result, I feel like so many like shitty found footage movies are made. There's so many. Like I'm just always like, God, I'm forgiving, but like if I and I can forgive a lot, but like if the sound is bad and I have a hard time like following, and I'm like, I got my TV cranked to 100 and I'm just like, I can't see anything now, I can't hear anything. Like what is the point of me watching this movie? So I too love zombie movies, and I have to ask, I know what I think sets apart your film from everything else, but I want to know what you think makes ZombieCon stand out, just other than it's just cosplayers, like in a genre that is already packed with zombie films, right? It is, you know, I feel like each genre has its own saturation. So to you, what do you think made it unique for you?
Erin, do you want to take, I'll say, why don't you go first and I'll go second?
Yeah.
Sure. I think it's almost an impossible movie to pin down the genre for. And I know this 100%. Because I've been marketing it and leading that whole foray for a long time now. And it's difficult, particularly because the first 25 or so minutes, it is a little bit more of a drama with some comedy. You're really invested in this friend group and following the characters. And there are hints of horror, especially at the top of what's to come.
Sure.
But it's got everything. It's drama, it's horror, it's comedy, it's action. Technically, there's a little sci-fi elements in there too, anime inspired. And so it's really difficult to say exactly the mood of ZombieCon, which is why so many reviewers, when they finish it, kind of have a hard time describing as well, but say, I feel like I just went through a war with these characters. Like I was right there with them, a fly in the wall. And that's the biggest compliment to us, honestly. So I would say that is what sets it apart. I would like to say a lot of heart as well, but there are many zombie films that have got insane amounts of heart. So I'm going to stick with that one.
Okay. Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was going to go with like just out of like a much simpler version of what Erin just said. The anime influences, which encapsulate a lot of what Erin just said, from like the I guess the roller coaster ride of the story, an equal focus being spent on not just the characters interacting with the zombies, but the characters as people apart from the zombies. And that's kind of like the whole idea in my mind of like an anime where we're focusing on these characters and the world events are very important and the challenges they go through are important. But a big part of the story is really just seeing these characters evolve through the circumstances of the story itself. And you see that tangentially in like a lot of other zombie movies, right? You got like, in the 28 series, especially, which I think they did a fantastic job with the 28 Years Later and then Bone Temple, in how we saw the evolution, right? Specifically of the zombies, right? How we had like the fat crawler zombies. We had like, our peak, whatever, the giant,
the alpha
zombie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then all the others, which has always been my idea of like how to evolve zombies, is like, that seems very natural to me, because just like human evolution, you'll have zombies that fill different gaps depending on, like, for example, the fat zombies that are on the ground. Well, if a zombie loses its legs and, it can't walk anymore and it's kind of crawling everywhere, well, it may not find food and be emaciated, or it might be something more similar to that if it's just decided to kind of eat everything. And I love that kind of natural progression and the broad spectrum of colors that kind of evolution affords. And so, to not get completely away from the point, that, but also with the characters themselves, and not just how they evolve past the zombie element, but how the relationships of this preformed friend group kind of blossom and change, as opposed to, like, I think most zombie movies are, you got group of people here, they come together, they solve problems together, like Train to Busan. No one really knows each other before the action gets going, and then we see them join together and have a bonding experience. And this is kind of like they're pre-bonded before it starts. So
I think you nailed it. I think heart is is the only thing I can say. Like, I enjoyed so much the roller coaster that I was on, like you said, starting off learning this friend group and how close they are together and like cosplayers. And I found myself, like, whenever not to give too much away for the folks that need to go see the movie still, who became the zombies, I was laughing my ass off when they were like, "Oh, what was his name? Mr. Reynolds. He's such an asshole. Like, God, he's for sure a zombie." Like, I'm dying laughing. And so, like, this is a serious situation because they've just had a run in with the very first zombie, and they're trying to figure out, like, oh man, LA's full of assholes. And I was like, this is such a brilliant take on like who would become the zombies. I had so much fun with it, and that kind of leads me into my next question, is about horror and comedy, because those two things to me are synonymous. They go hand in hand. My favorite movie of all time is The Lost Boys, which is absolutely a horror comedy, right? And so I'm assuming, but I want to ask you, how intentional was that commentary on the fandom and like the convention culture? Like, I can see you definitely leaned into it, but I mean, when you started off, was this a horror comedy, or did the comedic elements kind of just come naturally and you were like, that works and I love it?
When I'm writing, I try not to. I like movies that are multi-genre, like encompassing, because I feel like the platitudes of the human experience, like each one of us experience on like an average day, anything from, and I'm going to be hyperbolic here, but can experience anything from a deep depression to a super high excitement and everything that fills the gap in between. And that's kind of what I see as like the most beautiful movies are the ones that take and encapsulate the most crazy emotions you could feel and slam it all together, because it's like the most real life that you can get. And even in a super dramatic situation, there is usually going to be comedy, because people need a release even when they're under extreme pressure. It could be the most inappropriate thing ever. It's like someone laughing at a funeral, not because they're laughing, but they're just so overwhelmed with grief or whatever it is, and someone does something stupid, and it's just like your body has that natural release. So just trying to really think about these characters in this, obviously an absurd circumstance, but try to write them as realistically as possible. So a lot of the humor came just from trying to, I guess, massage out as much realism into the script as possible. And then when you found something that worked, like I think when, again, not giving anything away, but when they're doing that round room conversation about Mr. Reynolds and we go back to Punky, well, look, it's obviously my choice to be like, okay, like that bitch in my Pilates class. Like, I just the juxtaposition of Punky, who's like this badass like character, be like, yeah, I go to Pilates too. Like, that was just, obviously there's a moment for that just seemed funny. Now her character could conceivably do Pilates, but it's not the first thing you would expect for her character to be doing.
Right. And I would be repeating a lot of what Kyle said, so I'll answer it a little bit differently. Myself as the actor, myself as playing Claire and imagining Claire, when they started coming out and it was being labeled as, and even with distribution, when it was labeled as a horror comedy, Claire a little bit was like, wait, what? Like, hold on, like we went through it. It was horror, it was action, it was terrible, it was drama.
Yeah.
Because in preparing in the actor's type of headspace, like none of that was funny in the moment to her, and that's what makes it so hilarious, the drastic circumstances. But yes, producer Erin absolutely was having a freaking blast watching Kyle's edits and giving feedback and knowing when it just hit just right, those beats, it release the tension right before we throw you back into the action. I agree. They're often hand in hand, just like drama and comedy.
I'm very much that way personally, where I'm like, it'll be awkward situations and I'm like, oh, sorry, grief makes me weird. Like, like you say, like you just say outlandish things because you're like, I don't know like Ricky Bobby, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, and so that's where those real comedic elements in inappropriate times come out, and that's what makes it so funny, because like I feel like sometimes if you try to like write in the comedy like this is going to be funny, it just won't land. But so many times in your writing, and you're like you said, those real life situations, you're like, man, this is so much more relatable because everybody does that, like even in your own little friend groups and family groups all the time. So kind of piggybacking on what you just said, the actor versus the writer and the creator, what do you think was your biggest like creative challenges, your logistical challenges when you're trying to bring this film to life? And this is an indie production, so to your point, you don't have somebody saying, here's $5 million, go make this movie or whatever. So what were some of the challenges like?
For me personally, it's always time and money. I mean, on any set, I think of any size, especially when you at a high up position within the crew and you're responsible for a lot of things, you're always feeling like you're pressed on time, pressed on money. With indie filmmaking and certainly ZombieCon, it was both of those things all of the time. And so it always felt like we were up against the gun with less options than we wanted and less time and limited resources. And Kyle and all of us, but especially Kyle, having to creative problem solve. And funny enough, I actually think that one of the easier aspects was when finally Kyle was calling action and I could just sink into being the actor. And I definitely took all of that stress and emotion and the world of the producing and set it to the side and just imbued my character with just the emotion and lived in the reality. But yeah, balancing both was difficult because I was always worried that I wasn't putting enough work into my character when my mind 2 minutes before the take is on, I got to sign this paperwork. I got to collect this from someone. I got to make sure that the crafty's good. I got to make sure that the catering is coming today. And it's just balancing a lot of things. But definitely once I was in acting mode, I could just sink into acting mode. It was fantastic.
Right. Exactly.
And speaking more specifically to like the actual production elements that were difficult with the budget that we had, it was definitely for me the killing of the zombies. Anytime that we had to like do something that we couldn't do real for real, it would have been so much easier if we just had actors that were like, "Yeah, stab me through the heart with a sword."
Sure,
look,
naturally,
saved me a lot of time. So, just trying to figure out logistically how to do that with basically no money. I know, like, it started with me and the guy who works sound on the film, Chad Tolson, who's been a part of, like, the Big Squid family since it began. And we're out on the deck with, like, an angle grinder, like, just or, like, a metal grinder or something, like, sawing in half a bunch of katanas and stuff and trying to dull them. And like sparks are spitting out everywhere and it's dry in California. And I'm looking at all these plants underneath us and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be on the news before we even
starting a fire.
Like this is horrible.
It's not
that's how we're starting this. And then you have little problems like, okay, so we've got a zombie that needs to be impaled and they need to be moving around. And I know that like on even like a minusculely higher budget, if we had like even $200,000, this would have been a problem that would have been solved, with $2,000 and some elbow grease. But for us, because we only had a $60K budget and $30K was allocated towards equipment and insurance and legal fees and all the stuff that you don't really see on screen, we really only had a functional $30,000 budget to cover all of the locations, all of the costumes, all of the raw materials, all of the crafty, all of the stuff that actually makes the movie work. And then all of the contracts for all of the people that were working on it, because as much as, I would love everyone to work for free like I did on the movie, no one generally does that. So you got to pay people. So the budget was even smaller than I think that people realize it was. And when you've got that kind of budget, everything is a creative solution. So again, impaling the zombie, we had a fantastic makeup artist, but he had never had a zombie run around with a sword sticking out of their back and chest at the same time. So we're kind of trying to problem solve how we're going to do that. And my solution was like, okay, GoPro chest harnesses, but it has to be at this specific angle. So, we contracted with hot glue and like something else, like 2 GoPro chest harnesses with one on the back and one on the front and things like that, which then don't look right because then things are moving and shaking as the actor is moving and shaking.
Sure.
But that stuff was probably the most difficult because it was new for me. And it added a level of difficulty to every shot because you're constantly thinking, okay, I love everything I just saw, but my special effect, the sword just fell at a different angle. Well, that swords can't do that. So we'll reshoot it, reset it. So I think the impaling of the zombie, now that I'm thinking about it, was the hardest. The end scene, that last thing, and again, not giving too much away, but that rocket, when he moment, that was actually, I knew how to do that from the jump, and I knew exactly how we were going to do that, and that was one of the easiest things to pull off.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So did you know any of the actors, or did you do like open casting calls? I know because I talked to so many indie directors and actors, and they're like, you know what? Like, they're like, dude, I'm filming this in my apartment. Like, these are my buddies. Like, we borrowed this location was, my friend's uncle's cousin's farmhouse. Like, and they're like, you have to understand when your budget is small, you're like, you are calling in every favor, every chit you have, every person that wants to, be in a movie. Like, will they work for free? Do we have locations? So did you know them, or did you put out casting calls for them?
So it was a combination of both. I'll take the first part. I'll let Erin, who was the head of casting, finish it out. But in terms of the main 4 actors, we had been working together on those aforementioned web series, short films. I lived with Punky when I first moved out to LA. We met Christian at an acting class where we met. So we had been kind of running in the same circle and helping each other for like the previous 4 or 5 years. Manny came on board as we were doing the web series and joined the team and was like, we're just kind of all working together. So
that's Javier and Rocket, respectively.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. I went through the IMDb and I was like, all right, putting actors' names with characters.
So main 4, I knew that we needed to have people who were going to be down, and be able to be there for basically the entire time and be willing to do the most difficult things. So it seemed and also, the way I was thinking about it, I think the way we were all thinking about it is, even though we're talking about how small a $60,000 budget is now, for us at the time, especially $60,000 was an enormous amount of money that we had never seen on any project, not even close to any project prior. So it seemed like we were all like, none of us were thinking about this as like a low budget film. We all at the time were like, we've got all this money. We're going to be walking down. They're going to have stars. We're going to get a star on Hollywood Boulevard. This is our chance. So everyone was like super psyched about this because this was all of our dream. That's why we moved to Los Angeles or were, involved in acting to begin with. And we got to do it in the way that we wanted to do it. And I had done something to generate enough trust in everyone that they were like, yeah, Kyle, you could do this. I don't know what it was, but if I could bottle it and sell it, I'd be buying it myself.
Yeah.
And in regards to a couple other people on set, there are people that some people made some appearances from the short films that we did. Some of the web series were some of the other actors, but a large breadth of the actors in the film, especially the extras, all came from regular casting. And I'll let our amazing casting director, because Erin did all the casting on this movie, take it away.
Yeah.
Other than the roles that were written in, like Kyle said, filled in with friends and people we'd worked with before. We held professional casting services in person in Los Angeles. I actually had Christian, who played Javier, as my assistant, helping me run those sessions. And Melissa, one of Xander Rules girls, who's one of our great friends, she's also helping me weed through self-tapes because we were getting those too. But for example, a lot of the liquor store bullies, a lot of the tunnel zombies, I think I can get away with saying that.
Yeah.
Just roles here and there were all professionally cast. And then, as Kyle had mentioned, at the con, almost everyone from the con were completely professionally casted. And we really wanted to as well get real cosplayers. And so a large number of the extras I had been reaching out to via DM on Instagram back in this 2016.
Yeah.
This feature film, it's about cosplayers. We're throwing a fake con. We want, you to wear your cosplay, yada, yada. And we were lucky enough to get probably around a dozen who said, absolutely, I'm there. I'm bringing my costume. I'm bringing extras. Tell me what to do.
That's awesome.
So it was a really great mix and balance.
That's awesome. I will say that the community as a whole is very much like that. I've noticed just being in it for the short handful of years that I've been doing the podcast, everyone I've met through cons, whether it's cosplayers, whether it's actors, directors, special effects people, they're just like, yeah, what do you need? When do you need it? How can I help? I can give you this person's name. Like it's such a welcoming community that I'm like, dude, this is like that. Just it made my choice. Like that was a good choice. Good job, Ryan. Like you made the right choice of being. This is what you want to do, and hopefully one day make it like a full-time profession. But I'm glad that is. It seems like it was quite the production, and you got a lot of good people to be a part of the film. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Indie filmmaking, you got to pull together a great team for crew, especially.
Yeah.
Cast, yes, but crew, because everyone's overtired. Everyone's underpaid if they're paid at the time. I mean, It's craziness. So you have to all be passionate. And that was part of the casting, was figuring out, are these people off of just a first meeting in my communication not only seem reliable and like they're talented, but they would actually gel and they're good to have on set.
Right.
So important.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to finish up because you had mentioned locations, and yes, we did film the Rockets apartment was Erin and mine, our apartment. So yeah, we lived in it for a long time. So
I gotta ask, what's the best recipe for blood? Because there was a lot of it in that scene, and was it all over your apartment? Were you finding it weeks later?
Years later.
So first off, in terms of the recipe for blood, I want to be able to give you exact specifics. It's a trade secret. No, I'm kidding. Actually, our makeup artist, Joseph Trebresco, is like a masterful makeup artist, and he knew all the tips and tricks. We were super lucky to get him on board, and he slept on our couch that we were covering in blood and covering in plastic the entirety of production. Fantastic team player and like a truly talented guy. And he had bought specific types of blood that he had worked with in the past for specific scenes. So there's a different color to blood when it dries versus when it's fresh.
Yeah.
We had different viscosities of blood. So if we were spraying it, there was one type of blood that was being used to be able to get through the weed sprayer that he used to actually spray everyone.
That's awesome.
Versus like, if it was dripping or however it was moving.
Yeah.
So he was responsible for all of that. And he came back, I think, one day with 5 gallons of this type of blood. And then we're going to use this blood in the mouth. So we got a jar, a thing of this. And then we got some more blood that this is going to be for, this other thing. And then when we cover them up after, it's been drying for a couple hours, we'll use this type of blood. And I'm like, just looking at a bunch of blood, I'm like, okay, fantastic. This looks like a zombie movie.
I just imagine getting pulled over and having buckets of blood in your trunk and having to explain that to a police. Like, well, you see, I'm doing a short film and I've got this is for dripping and this is for spraying. And he's just like, yeah, okay. I mean, because I've seen so many movies where literally I'm like, okay, the blood looks bad. It just looks bad. And I will say it looked great. I loved every single scene, the first scene, obviously with Claire, where she's just loses it and it's just everywhere. I was I loved how over the top it was. And I was and maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine, but if the blood looks wrong, I'm like, this is so off. If the color or the viscosity is off, but it looked awesome. So I was just curious about that.
Thank you so much. And I will add, because we asked him this question recently, he said that the type of blood that he got and the brand and everything was actually originally developed for the Harry Potter films.
That's amazing.
It's pro standard.
Very, very, very high class.
We only get sprayed with the best here in one.
And in regards to finding the blood in the apartment, I will say that when we were moving out of Los Angeles, so this is only about a year and a half ago, I had a painter come in. To the real estate agent was like, we got to paint this place, whatever. Made sense at the time. The painter was going through and we're going to paint this wall. We're going to paint that wall. We'll paint this ceiling. And the real estate agent was like, make sure you tell him to paint all the window shades and all that stuff. I'm like, okay. So opening up curtains, paint this, paint that. I get to a curtain that was behind my desk, and literally this window hadn't been open in forever. And I just pull the curtain back, and there's just a giant like blood spray like on the wall. And the painter I thought was gonna like faint. He's like, "Oh, no. What the fuck?" I'm like, no, that's fake. That's not real. And I'm like realizing as I'm trying to like fumble over my words and explaining this, that I sound more guilty by trying to explain it than if I had just been like, oh no, that's from a movie. But I was like, so like, no, that's not real. It's not what you think it is.
He went home that night and was like telling his wife, his partner, his buddy, like,
yeah,
I've got a crazy situation.
I bet like we flash forward to Kyle sitting in an interrogation room, and it's like, I bet you're wondering how I got here, answering these questions.
We had a dead body. So the dead bodies that were in the apartment, we had one of them or two of them were on the patio where you see them like in the film. And we just left them out there because we were so busy. And I'm like, I don't have anywhere to put these things right now. We were walking the dogs one day and I looked up and I saw, a police helicopter. They fly all over the valley. And I'm like, oh shit, Erin, we've got like dead bodies wrapped on our porch.
What about the bodies on our porch?
That's not a conversation you probably thought you'd ever be having, but that's amazing. Were you inspired by any different specific like zombie movies? Like I know everybody's like, oh, Romero or whatever, World War Z, whatever it might be, based on, like you said, the different types of zombies. So I didn't know if anything or creators, had inspired and influenced the kind of approach that you decided to take with the look of your zombies.
So I tried to make the zombies. So basically, the way that I act as an actor is I learned that you absorb all of the material, you read all the words, you do all of your back work, and then when it comes to the acting portion, you try to throw it away. Mm-hmm. And you let something organic come to life because of that. So in writing and trying to develop things, I wanted them to both pay homage to everything that I love, but also be completely unique and different. Mm-hmm. So I tried to take in as many zombie influences as humanly possible. And then in the process of creating them, throw it all away before actually creating them. So it's impossible for me to say, okay, they were supposed to be like this type of zombie or like that type of zombie. I knew I wanted them to be fast and strong because we didn't have the budget to have hordes. And I feel like slow kind of moving zombies are really effective when you've got large breaths of zombies because it makes it more imposing. And it almost feels like a slow moving like tidal wave descending on your characters. We didn't have a tidal wave, but we had a fire hose, and we could spray the characters down with super strong, agile zombies. And so that I think was probably very 28, series inspired, a little bit of World War Z, but like specifically your fast, overtly strong zombie type. In regards to the look, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want them to be like decaying flesh because in the movie, of course, it's kind of like it happens almost like the snap of a finger.
Right.
And it takes a long time for flesh to decay and start falling off. And so I was trying to bake in realism, but also give them a little bit of like just a little bit of something, a little zhuzhing to, make sure we got a little monster effects going on.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, so this is kind of like the evil protruding out of them. And it's boiling up on their skin. So I worked with Joe and I described and drew a bunch of diagrams on like how I wanted these boils to be and how like they would evolve over the course of the film and they would start, basically popping as like this stuff was like oozing out of them.
It was the asshole. The asshole was leaking out.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The inner evil and like, demonicness or assholery or whatever they were was just kind of oozing out of them.
Yeah.
And he custom made a bunch of molds. And so all of the latex effects that were applied to the zombies were totally original for ZombieCon based off of, schematics and drawings and, conversations that he and I had and again, influenced kind of by everything and then by nothing at the same time, just trying to, again, throw it away before the moment of creation. So that way I don't want to steal anything from anyone, but I also, I'm subconsciously influenced by all the zombie movies that I love because
100%.
They run back in my head all the time.
100%. Totally agree. How did you guys approach like the world building? Especially with this being, obviously it's very noticeable. It's in the title, Volume 1. Like, is this like a mapping out a larger roadmap? And if there's spoilers here, you can give me what you can give me, but I'm curious as to what the larger universe might entail.
So ZombieCon again is written like very much like an anime. I'm sorry, Erin. Do you mind if I know I just talked a lot.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I'm like very excited about this question specifically.
Sure.
So ZombieCon was always written as almost like an anime breath of a story. So the first movie is like your anime opening season. We've got to know the characters, we got to know the mechanic of the world, and what kind of obstacles our characters are going to face, but giving you a little bit of mystery to say, okay, so there could be something more to what we've already seen, and how will the characters deal with that. And we've written volumes 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the volumes go all the way up to 10.
Oh, wow.
And then kind of like the story continues, and there are a lot of deep-seated elements that aren't even touched upon in ZombieCon Volume 1 that basically lengthen and expand the lore of the world throughout those volumes. But it's very much like an anime. It's drip fed in through each movie. You get a little bit more about those elements. And the movies and the stories, the thing that seams it all together, it's the main 4 characters who continue to evolve and change and maybe die. I don't know. We'll have to see. And make their way through the continuously perilous world that's been created by, Claire's choice.
Yeah, way to go, Claire.
Thanks. Thanks for the call out there.
That's what I thought. I was so appreciative of, was the idea of like, this started with cosplay. These are costumes they're wearing. They're going to conventions, and as the movie progresses, those costumes become very real, and they become like the heroes that they're wanting to portray. They realize it was them all along. And I think that's what was like so much heart to it, because I was like, man, like you like in the beginning when it was like, oh, the nerd, loser, weirdo, like, you know what, like, no, like they aren't that. They have this in them all along, and they are these heroes, and they can do these awesome things. And yes, at the end, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a little bit of, I would say, kind of a cliffhanger where you're like, oh, what's good, and then it's kind of over. So it's like, I love that kind of segue into like, there's more story to come, not just with the main characters, but with, characters adjacent to the main 4. So I'm excited to see what the world holds, and, what the universe, might bring us in the future.
Well, Kyle has already written, and I've edited his screenplays for ZombieCon 2 through 5, and he's mapped out all the way through 10. So we have a lot still of road left to tread here, and we're very hopeful that we'll be in pre-production on Volume 2 by the end of this year.
Woo-hoo.
So,
that's exciting news.
We're marching towards it. We got a little bit derailed in the best way possible because we're working on a micro horror, a vertical series for Screamify.
Oh,
right
fun.
now. And that's been started this whole year. Yeah, we'll shoot you a screener if you're interested.
Yes, absolutely.
In the next, hopefully month or so. But that was super exciting. And then we have to wrap up post-production. Kyle's almost done with an edit on a feature film that we shot at the top of last year that we paused because of ZombieCon marketing. So we got things stacking up, but ZombieCon 2 is also definitely our focus, and where we're really hopeful by the end of this year we'll be having some crazy cool announcements.
That's awesome.
And
are you guys crowdfunding at all, or doing any sort of, is this all self-funded still, or?
It will depend. We're talking with a couple different people right now, looking at a couple different situations. So we can't really speak too much more on it, but that's definitely in the mix as well.
Awesome. That's exciting news.
And I'll give a little like Easter egg for Volume 2 without giving anything away. It takes place after a time skip, so to be determined, but about 6 to 10 years time skip. And our Claire's character has taken all of the guilt associated with her choice in the first movie and internalized it. And she comes back as basically your Sarah Connor, I need to solve this problem by any militaristic need necessary type character. And that's just one small little piece of the entire thing. But it was a fun character to write. I think Erin's super pumped to play this version of Claire.
I'm excited. Taking a character from where she started to where she went through in ZombieCon Vol 1 to the time skip where she is at now, and with such a realistic reason and a deeply well written and emotional reason why. I mean, I'm beyond excited.
That's exciting because she's getting into her full final girl phase, which I appreciate. I love a strong final girl. And I always said, I was telling my wife, I'm like, is final girl, like, I was like, is that derogatory? Should it be like final woman or final, like, and she was like, well, I think it's just like a term that's been used forever. She's like, but it does kind of sound demeaning. I was like, okay, I'll call it whatever we need to call it. But I love strong female leads like Erin from You're Next. And who's the one that they're coming out the sequel, Ready or Not, Samara Weaving and Ready or Not. Like, I love a strong female lead that's just like, all right, like you said, by all means necessary, we're going scorched earth. So I'm ready to see where it goes in volume 2. I know you got to get out of here a little bit, but I have one final question I thought I'd get for you guys, and I wanted to leave it with, if the audiences could take one thing away from ZombieCon Volume 1, what do you hope that they take away? Is it the adrenaline? Is it the comedy, the commentary, or is it kind of a warning about what convention they might attend next?
I would say, and this definitely is true for both the feeling of ZombieCon Volume 1 and the way that it was made, which we can't get away from with this, our perspective. It's don't give up, and it's never too late. And that applies to literally everything, every situation, what you want to be, what you're facing, what you're up against, what your family or friends are up against. Don't give up, and it's never too late.
Yeah. And I would say that being an asshole is a choice. Choose wisely.
100% agree with you. And, that was very telling at the end. So, that's all that I had for us. I so appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with me for a little bit. I feel like, hey, next time you guys are all in Atlanta in one place, drop me a message. We can grab a coffee and chat up for a little bit. But I just want to leave it with, I'm so thankful for you guys for reaching out, or if I reached out. I can't remember how we got in contact, but I saw the film and I was like, I have to watch this. And so working with me, allowing me to watch it, and then the t-shirt, the swag, you guys are awesome. I love the film so much. Like I said, it's everything I want in a horror film, and the comedy, just everything. It was just chef's kiss, and I enjoyed it so much. So I'm really appreciate everything you guys have done and put out, and I look forward to volumes 2 through infinity. We'll see how far they take us, right?
That means the world. Truly, it's our honor and our pleasure hearing everything that you said, the fact that you watched it, you loved it, you shared your thoughts and invited us on here. It means the absolute world. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will send you all the links when everything's up and live, and you can go watch it and share it across all your socials. You guys are welcome back anytime. We can have any further conversation. So thank you so much again, and you guys have a wonderful evening. Hey, you as well. Thank you so much for. All right. Looking forward to it. Right back at you. Take care. Bye, guys. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Bye.